Welcome, everyone, to a very special bonus episode of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks. We are the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. But, sometimes we cannot be confined to simply talking about all things Charles Band. If you've been following the show from the beginning, or if you're just joining us for the very first time, welcome. But if you've been with us from the beginning, you know that Steve and myself have an affinity for horror and exploitation and all kinds of genre movies. And so sometimes we like to do something a little bit special for our listeners. But I am Jared Hornbeck, one of your hosts. I'm not the only one who's here, though. Who else is here with me?
Hi, I'm Steve Guntley. I'm also here, and I'm excited to be here because we are joined by a B-movie luminary. Can I say? Is that a word you identify yourself as? Yeah,
I'd say B+ luminary.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. B+
seriously,
A-
Steve,
luminary.
Geez, I was going to say, I've been saying genre. I would not say B movie. Wow. We're off to a great start.
Wow.
You're degrading our guest already.
A terrible, terrible start, you guys.
You're just trying to pass the buck to me because you made her mad earlier. So I'm not taking this flack.
I was coming on to, this extraordinary podcast that
well that part's correct.
Incredible movies with no letter recognition above them, just incredible genre fare.
You're exactly right. I apologize.
And I'm on the lower level B of that.
But I'm still standing by luminary on this one because we are joined by actress, philanthropist, all around cool person, Tiffany Shepis. Am I saying your name right?
You are.
You got it.
Okay.
Hey.
All right. I'm double checking because it's one of those, like, you only see it written, So
yeah. And even though we're breaking slightly from format for this one, that doesn't matter, because if you love genre movies, horror movies, exploitation movies, you've seen something that she's in and probably loved it. You might have seen her in The Hazing or Abominable or Victor Crowley, or, you could have heard us talk about her on our episode for Delta Delta Die. So Tiffany, we're really excited to have someone with your staying power in the genre and your expertise in your career joining us for a fun little bonus interview. So thank you again.
I am excited. What should we talk about, guys? Should we only talk about Delta Delta Die, or should we branch off?
I am all about branching out. I would love to, honestly, I wrote down professional interviewee type questions. So I want to know a little bit of your origin story. I want to know how you kind of came into this world, so to speak.
Okay, so I was a kid, grew up in New York, not far from Jared.
Nice.
And I was a kid who was making little short films. I would make movies on my block in Manhattan and in New Rochelle, New York, where I was actually born. Where we would love horror movies because that's what we did. We were horror nerds. I would make movies with our giant VHS camcorder and, jump off the roof and cover ourselves in blood. And we're like, we're dying. We make all these movies. By the way, those are buried in a time capsule in somebody's backyard in New Rochelle, New York. Anybody out there knows where they're at, find them. I probably would pay you to find those things.
Charles Band probably already distributed those.
No, it was Lloyd Kaufman for sure.
Oh, Lloyd Kaufman got him first. Yeah.
100%. So I was just a horror movie kid, loved watching horror films, loved making them in our backyard, and made a little horror film for some NYU kids called The Shack. And I was like, oh man, this would be so cool to do this. It's like a job. While I was sitting in high school, there was a bunch of kids reading an actor's paper, and I was like, let me see that. And there was an ad for TROMEO and Juliet. And I was like, wait, this sounds so familiar. Holy crap, these are the guys that did The Toxic Avenger. I have to go. And this is at the time when you didn't have to necessarily be asked to come audition. There were open casting calls. And so I cut school and I went down with my odd, modeling headshot. And there was nothing on the back except maybe 3 special skills, which were probably made up. I went in there and they were like, well, do you know any stunts? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I know jujitsu. Not true.
Have you seen the VHS of me jumping off the roof?
And I decided to top that with, not only do I know jujitsu, but I'm a black belt in jujitsu.
Well, obviously.
So they're like, whoa, well, we have to see these skills. And so I showed them. Clearly I was good enough at street fighting and bullshitting to prove that I was definitely a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And lo and behold, I got the part of Peter, the bodyguard to the Capulet family. And this movie, Tromeo and Juliet, was written and co-directed by Lloyd Kaufman and James Gunn. James Gunn, who do huge and amazing things, and Lloyd Kaufman, who is Uncle Lloyd Kaufman,
who is a huge and amazing person in his own right.
Huge and amazing person. The East Coast Charlie Band, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So with that, being in Trauma Universe, and especially being such a young, exciting fan. By the way, I was 15. I think I also lied for that part. Said I was
sure.
Like 15, then said I was 17, and then I forgot. And,
hey, in for a penny. Yeah.
It started out in bullshit. So true Hollywood fashion.
There you go.
And they brought me around to promote Tromeo. And so like we flew to Cannes, and then I started hosting for Wild on the Riviera and doing weird segments for them. And I think what happened was, like, I mean, my first convention was a Fango convention in New York City, and the Big Apple Comic-Con, which happened to be in the basement of a church when they first had their first shows, like not the huge thing that it is now. The genre fans that liked me were like, oh, she also loves horror movies. Cause like, that's all I wanted to talk about. I was like, oh, and did you guys see this? And oh shit, we're sitting next to Ken Foray, or, oh my God. And so it was like, we should keep her around. So my fandom kind of got me my jobs. And I don't really know what came next, but it was like, next thing you know, it was making Sci-Fi Channel movies, and, you know, everyone that would play on Friday nights, and lots of Skinamax crazy movies, and lots of 80s style exploitation films that were made in the 90s, and the early 2000s, and just kind of kept going. And, you know, got really lucky with some that people really, really liked. And in like the kind of heyday of blockbuster stuff where you could go in there and at any given time, there'd be like 9 of my movies, like releases. And so I had a really good time. And now I still stick around. So thank God.
I revisited Tromeo and Juliet recently. That was my very first Troma movie. And that was kind of the one that kind of got me checking out a lot of other Troma movies and kind of leading down this whole horrible primrose path that I've led myself onto now. But it's incredible. It's still so fun. You can still see like James Gunn's kind of sensibilities coming through. It's this very scrappy, like heartfelt little indie production. I definitely recommend people, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check that movie out. It's awesome.
And that's how it was too, filming it. And even as a really young person, being on one of my first real experiences on a movie set, like you could see where James and Lloyd like really do know a shit ton about filmmaking, and poured their heart into that in this like kind of punk rock, you know, weird masterpiece. And I hate to say it like that because it sounds like obnoxious, but I really do think it was. Like, I think I've gone back and watched it. And it's like, whoa, like this is so cool. And it was a little bit ahead of its time.
It's wild. It's a pretty like subversive movie, and it's really fun. And it's actually funny.
Really good in it. Like everybody's like kind of great and better than they really should be. Everybody showed up.
I always viewed it as like a transitional movie because I feel like it was the first of the Troma movies that would then follow in the late 90s. Whereas like by 96, when that came out, I probably had seen Toxic Avenger. And I'd seen probably some slasher movies or pickups that were distributed by Troma, like Graduation Day and stuff like that. But I think Tromeo and Juliet for me is like the demarcation point of where it's like there's kind of a before Troma and then there's an after Tromeo and Juliet Troma, because then I feel like you just get hit with like Terror Firmer, Citizen Toxie, Poultrygeist, like all of those types of movies in a row, and it's like
super weird shit.
Yeah,
weird shit, and like kind of like auteur driven shit. You know, like Troma before was kind of like they were just doing pickups. You know, there was a lot of like just whatever, like weird little B movies from whatever corner of the world. We're picking these up and we're just distributing them. And then after Tromeo, it's like, yeah, let's do original Troma branded stuff, like exclusively, you know, continuing that on. And that was really cool.
Once my friends and I got our hands on some of those first DVD releases of those when they first came out, it was like we would just see, okay, is this one going to up the ante? Is this one going to be crazier than the last one that we saw? Like, and we would just sit around, you know, and I was probably 18, 19 at the time, and like would sit around and like maybe like crack open a couple beers in like a friend's house and just watch those movies. And it was like, I think one of the things, because we talk so much about Full Moon and Empire, and when it comes down to like the finished product, when you look at Troma as a whole, like there's things I really like and there's things I don't personally. But one thing I can't take away from Troma is that like any sort of like real drive to understand the nuts and bolts of filmmaking was basically spearheaded by Troma. It was because it was like, oh look, I could do that. Like I have a wacky idea that like doesn't seem like it's something anyone would ever greenlight for a movie. No, Lloyd would. Like that was the feeling.
100%. It really was like, you want to learn how to make a movie, go to Troma Film School. And I'm not saying make a great movie, but know how to put one together from start to finish, because that's what they would have you do. Like you could come in there as an intern and next thing you know, you're editing. Yeah. Right. Or you're going to like my husband always calls me. He's like, well, it's your Troma sensibilities, right? Because like, I know how to promote something. I know how to talk about a movie. Now, was it naturally in me? Probably. Right. But when you're thrown in front of, and at the time, this really was true. Like you'd get to France for the film festival and there'd be 500 news reporters there because they wanted to see what Troma was up to next. Yeah. And was forced to be like, all right, I'm on. Let me talk to you about Terra Firma. Let me tell you about Nymphoid Barbarian and Dinosaur Hell. Right. So you're forced to instantly be on because that like that moment is all you have. So it's like kind of take that shot. So I tell anybody, like, especially back then, it was like, and you can see it with how many cool people have come out of Troma. Oh yeah. Like filmmaker wise, it's like, oh, I get it. Like you learned a lot there on $3 salary.
I mean, I'm so glad you're here though, and we get to talk about Troma a little bit more because like we've like brushed on it a few times, but we do see Troma as kind of this parallel universe to the stuff that we're covering. And like, I love Troma stuff. I've always loved it. And like, I always enjoy it. So it's cool to talk about it. And with someone who was there for many of them. And I think like you hit on something cool too. It's like, I think both Lloyd Kaufman and Charles Band have that same kind of like carnival barker energy or like street side hustler energy, like it's, they're getting their moves. It's like positive hustler, they're like, they're upbeat and they love what they're doing, but they're hustling all the time.
But it had to do with them, both of them. I see it with both of them. I saw it with like Corman stuff. Mm-hmm. Like they both have, like the marketing side to them, which also gave you merch, which like you didn't see from a lot of other indie companies or movies coming out at the time. Like now, you go to a convention and there's like a bazillion Terrifier shirts or there's like a bazillion Chainsaw shirts. Like I feel like Troma and Charlie were doing that long before anybody else. Like you could go to a Troma table and there'd be 100, different copied covers of something, right? Like an alternative covers for like, even like, let's say Delta Die at Charlie's table. There were 2 different ones. So I feel like they were doing like the kind of merch for horror fans long before it was like really cool and popular to do that.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of neat.
Well, if I ever stumbled into one of those conventions and saw Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD mask, I might have to grab that.
Might have to.
It's pretty cool. It would be cool to have it. But like, Troma, like I was on the cover of movies that I wasn't even in. Dinosaur Hell and Maniac Nurses Find Ecstasy.
Oh, okay. All right.
I signed a lot of those. Not in it.
It's great. It's great doing this because the Venn diagram of Full Moon and Troma and like the people who are our listeners, obviously there's a lot of Troma stuff and tangential stuff that they're into also. So talking about all this stuff as a nice kind of change of pace is still going to satisfy a lot of what our listeners are, tune into every week for. But the thing that I love too is that one thing that you cannot deny, whether it's Troma or whether it's Full Moon or Empire, is just like, man, you find some of the greatest movie titles.
Oh yeah.
Like we had when we had Brink Stevens on not too long ago, and we were just talking to her about, because she directed Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 2. And she's in the first one and in the second one in a cameo as well. And there's a point in the episode where I feel like she was just naming titles of movies, and it was just like, I just had a huge smile on my face the whole time. Cause I'm just like, anytime it's like a Troma movie, a Full Moon, or like a Fred Olin Ray or a Jim Wynorski movie. It's like it's they always are such amazing titles. We've covered so many of them. So just off the top of your head, you named a couple of really good ones, Tiffany. But like, if you can only take one with you, what wins the gold, do you think?
Of movies I've made?
Just movie titles that you've come across, and like, well, it could be ones you could do two separate categories.
Oh, come on. Well, all right. 100% Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-orama gets like best title. 100%.
That's a Hall of Famer. That's a Hall of Famer.
It's a Hall of Fame. It's still a fun movie. It's I mean, you can't deny how badass all of the women in that were.
Oh yeah.
Was it Ginger Dead Man?
Yeah. Passion of the Crust is the sequel, which we gotta love. That's my personal favorite of those. Still makes me laugh every time.
I mean, Romeo and Juliet's a pretty stellar title.
It's really good. It's really good.
I still to this day will get people that'll come up like, like, but what is a trauma? Like
that was my thing. Yeah, and that was the weird. I rented that movie and having no idea what trauma was. And I'm like, all right, I'm sure they'll explain what this title means. And I mean,
after you watch the movie.
Yeah, you have to fall down a rabbit hole after that and just kind of like, oh, okay, this is trauma. All right. And
I'll put my 2 cents out there for one of yours, Tiffany. Just based on title alone. Killer Babes and the Frightening Film Fiasco.
Oh, pretty good.
Good title.
It is a very good title. Sadly, that movie never got made.
Oh, damn. Oh, that's too bad. It's too bad.
It's got a great title, great poster.
Yep, it does. Yeah. It has a great poster, and it was really, really, really cool. And it never got made because I couldn't make it. And
bummer.
But movies that I've made that were really cool. I mean, I love The Violent Kind.
Oh yeah.
Biker Possession is pretty awesome. I get to crawl around a ceiling covered in blood and
cool.
Eat people kind of deal. And The Hazing's a lot of fun, which has a Blu-ray extended
does it?
Blu-ray coming out this October, which is gonna be really, really neat. Lots of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Delta Die. I mean, how do you pass up Delta Die for a cool title? And cool cover with an alternate cool cover.
Well, okay, and I was gonna say, like, with this movie, you're getting thrown in with some of kind of like the reigning scream queens of this generation. This is like it's Julie Strain and like Brink is in there, a whole bunch of other amazing like actresses are in there. Did you feel like that was kind of a coronation? Do you feel like I'm in the group now? Like I'm one of the cool girls.
I mean, no, because Stephen, you don't do your research, but I'd made lots of other projects with them prior to Delta Die.
Oh, you worked with them already? Oh, I did not know that. Okay, I did not know that.
Thank you. Throw him directly under the bus.
Under the bus. Research garbage. Let's block and delete you now. I'm Tiffany Shepis, the new co-host, along with Jared.
Bye, guys.
So no, I'd known these guys since I'd started making these movies when I was like 16. So I'd been in movies with Brink, brought Brink onto movies before. Julie, I didn't know as well, but because of the Trauma Camp, I did because I hosted a TV show called Edge TV. And so she was on our show quite a bit. And we actually would record stuff from her house, like when she was with Kevin Eastman. And obviously everyone was very heartbroken when Julie died, but I was excited to do something with everybody in that kind of vein, right? Like, so it was like this cool movie where they were sort of the house mothers, which was like really neat. And I thought the premise was a lot of fun. Like, how do you not love like cool sorority chicks that are killing frat boys and selling them in meat pies? Like, it's incredible. So for that reason, and then of course, yes, to work with them is always a lot of fun. But I had already kind of had that fangirl moment of like, oh, this is so neat. I'm working with other scream queens.
Yeah. Okay, so you'd already worked that through your system.
And coincidentally, with stuff that we've recorded over the last few months, I feel like we've had a lot of Debbie Rochon appearances. Like, I feel like it's just been coincidental because, we let guests pick what movie they want to cover, or sometimes we'll just like pick randomly from the spreadsheet, and it just worked out that she's been in like 3 or 4 things that we've talked about in the last like 2 months, probably.
Yeah.
And I know you've obviously been working with her for a long time.
She should have been in Delta Die with us. Debbie's great. Debbie's one of those actresses that kind of like Brink Stevens and Debbie, I put into the same class, that they're both incredibly good looking, but they're both really, really good. And I feel like that's not a lot of the acting that you would see in a lot of the movies that I think all three of us love. You know what I mean? Like, it's like good acting didn't always go hand in hand, but I think for them it did. I think Brink's really, really good, and she's good at being really sexy, and she's good at being really mean. Same as Debbie. I think both given proper, not proper, I guess isn't the right word, but like given like the chance to really shine in like a big movie, really could have.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like when listening to Brink talk and telling us about those times that she flirted with kind of like mainstream stuff. Like she was a butt double in Psycho 3. And, you know, she was one of the girls in This Is Spinal Tap. And she's had these little parts in some pretty big movies. But I think like, I mean, I am a Slumber Party Massacre stan. And so like for me, I'm glad she took the path she did, because like when I look at that as being sort of like her launching off point, I'm like, no, you know what? I'm glad it worked that way for her, because I have so much respect for genre actors and people who kind of put, you know, the same energy and the same intensity and the same amount of time and respect into doing these kinds of projects and don't treat it like it's something that's beneath them. And I think she's one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah. And often for a lot less recognition. Like, yeah, you know, and I don't think people realize how much work people are putting in movies like this, just because they kind of fly under the radar a bit, or you have to seek them out.
Dude, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of time, often way more time than you would put in on a big budget film, because, you know, you're just having to spread this shit out over like sometimes people's weekends or whatever. The wear and tear on your body, because you're often your own stunt double and still doing stunts. Like I've had a fresh fracture in my neck for years that I'm certain was from throwing myself downstairs, because I was like, no, I'll do it. That'll look so cool.
Yeah.
You know, poor Debbie. You've heard Debbie's story of her hand, you know, almost getting completely severed off. I'm sure you've heard that. Like,
yeah, I've read that. Yeah.
These terrible, like, not saying that all these indie movies are dangerous by any means or anything like that, but like you put yourself through a great deal of stuff, and it's often, you know, you're shooting in like Shakopee, Minnesota. No knock to Shakopee, but you're not getting flown to London or Bora Bora, right? Like you're
it's not
in the woods in Scranton.
Right. And people assume that because a lot of these movies, especially like the full moon movies we cover, tend to be shot in like at max like a week, you know, like they're turned around really, really fast. And
now
that
in
usually
Cleveland,
means
all of them in Cleveland.
And all in Cleveland. And nowadays that kind of means like you're just sort of on the clock 24/7 until this thing is done, because you've got to like cram so much shooting time into these. So like it is like a marathon, and it's pretty intense what you have to go through, and to be doing, according to your IMDb, close to 200 of these, you know, and many other projects as well. But like that's gotta like stress you out.
You have to love it. Like, I mean, you have to love it. Like, and I feel like you've seen some of these actors that have been in these movies that sort of come and go. You're like, oh, they were really good, but I don't see them in as much stuff anymore. It's like, I love it. Like, yeah, you have to dig these things. You have to dig going to the conventions. You have to love going to these film festivals and promoting it. Not to say that people don't also get tired of that too and want to do other things.
Sure.
But I feel like the ones that really like Debbie, like Brink, that love the genre and love the people and the family kind of vibe that encompass it, stick around.
Yeah.
You know, why you would bring somebody back to talk about a movie that's 30 years old, right? Because they loved it and they want to talk about it. Like, you don't see that with, you know, a romantic comedy that was shot 30 years ago and those people haven't made a movie since.
Right. And I mean, there is
sorry. Yeah,
we've just been discovering how relatively small and how very tight knit this whole horror community is. Like pretty much every guest we have on, like we'll reference somebody else, and they it's all interconnected. Like everybody knows each other, and everybody has nice things to say about each other.
We had a there was a horror movie bookshop here in California called Dark Delicacies, and they were around 30 years. I was at like their first store doing signings. I probably signed 4 dozen movies there over the years, and then have gone there 4 dozen other times to support friends. And so they had their closing, and it was a bittersweet but a really awesome day because everybody, I saw Brink there, like everybody showed up that had, that was available. And it really is that. It was like this family reunion of people that you love very much, but you haven't seen often, or you only see at conventions, like, or people you made movies with, but years and years ago. And it was just a reminder how tight our group really is. Because it was like, every time I just turned around, like, oh, there's Bill Moseley. Like, oh, talk about like the people that loved our movie Homesick, and you turn around, there's, Doug Jones. And it was all these people that you really, really know and love. And for me, grew up with, grew up being a fan of, but then also like grew up making movies with. So it's a cool world to be in.
I was following the closing of Dark Delicacies because we covered a movie, Horror Vision, and there's a scene in the movie that takes place in Dark Delicacies.
Horror Vision. Am I in that?
I don't think so. It's a Danny Raven movie.
Brink is in it.
Yeah, Brink's briefly in it.
Okay, no, I think I did a anthology called Horror Vision, or maybe it was Terror Vision.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Terror Vision's a different movie too. Yeah, there's a few of these. Yeah.
I feel like that name might have been used more than once. But our guest who was on the show with us, it lives in LA, and so we were saying like how we were laughing because there's a scene that takes place in the store, and it's in front of a bunch of like Puppet Master merchandise. And we were like, "Where is this? Was this set dressed?" And our guest was like, "No, this is a real store. Like this is a store called Dark Delicacies." And she told us about Dell. And then so I've been following the store on Instagram. And so over the last, like, I don't know, however many months, I've been watching all of these people lamenting the closing of the store.
Yeah.
It's
a bummer. But I mean, in fairness to them, they kept it going for a very long time. But what was cool about it was giving fans that would come to LA like a place that they could go, and almost any time you'd walk into Dark Delicacies, you would see somebody that was genre famous, like just there to sign something, there to pick something up, like, at any given time you could walk into that store and be like, oh, there's a who's who of horror movies.
I mean, cool. Are you still like a fan, or are you just kind of so like immersed in it all the time? You're kind of like, oh man, if I have to see, one more horror movie today, like, are you still a fan of like the genre? Yeah,
absolutely. But I am like a massive baby, and I don't know if it's like ever since I had kids, or if maybe it's just the natural. I'm just old. I don't know what it is, but I'm scared all the time. Like, so like I won't just sit around and watch like horror movies by myself. I have to have like people there. Like, something, like, all right, what are we watching? And so we have had a thing in our family. So like we have probably like everybody's family, like nobody could ever decide what the fuck to watch. And all we end up doing is arguing by the end. So it became a Friday night, like horror, but it's like, it would be Jared's week, and then it's Steven's week, and then it's Tiffany's week. Well, everyone always shits on my picks. Like both of my husband and son hate everything I pick. So I had picked Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They hated that. Like, they didn't hate that. They can appreciate it, but they're just not like, oh, it's like, it's corny. It's not scary. Blah. So they suck. I put like whatever. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go more like serious, like old timey. And so I picked Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Ooh, fun one.
They're like, like, I think my son left in like 3 minutes. Like, my husband's like, all right, it's cool, but so I just can't get it right with them. So I may have to just get a new family that can appreciate my
nobody tells me to pick movies anymore, because I had one time where we had a couple of my wife and I had a couple of friends over our apartment, and they invited like acquaintances, who we had met once or twice, but we didn't really know them, like 2 or 3 of them. So it was maybe like 8 to 10 people sitting, around and like, let's put a movie on. And I'm like, what do you guys want to watch? They're like, oh, we don't care. So I put on Sleepaway Camp.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them had seen Sleepaway Camp. And it could be coincidental, but there's, I think, 3 people who were at my apartment that day who I've never spoken to or heard from again.
Okay, in fairness, what were you and your wife thinking? It's like super weird.
Don't blame her. Don't blame her. No. She had no idea.
She can't rein him in. Yeah.
This was you?
This was me.
Okay. So what were you thinking? Like, oh, we don't know these people. Let's just watch a movie together.
I mean,
I don't know.
Game night, a drink, movies, like real, like comfortable.
You have to get a
capital
preface.
M movie too.
It was what?
I said that's Sleepaway Camp is a capital M movie.
It's
like you have to be in the right frame of mind for that.
Yeah, you have to like kind of like you got to know your audience for certain films.
I mean, let's put your family on blast
like,
here.
Oh, watch I Spit on Your Grave, new friends. Like, no,
you gotta. That's second date. That's second date before you break that one
Sit
out.
on down, friends, while I spin the tail of the human centipede. Yeah.
Yes. All right, let's put your family on blast here. If they're rejecting Baby Jane, what are they picking on their night?
Well, they like real classics though. In their truth for them, they probably have, and they do have way better taste than I do. Like, my son's favorite movie of all time is Saw, great movie, but I like corny trauma. Charlie stuff. Like I was like, let's watch Nightbreed, and they were like,
I love Nightbreed.
Nightbreed's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he showed my son the original Chainsaw. And I was like, that's gonna be terrifying. You can't watch that. And my son's like, oh, it's so cinematically cool. I'm like, who are you, bro? Like, you're 11. Like, you're supposed to be just like, this is gross.
Oh, an interesting early rural version of cinema verite, I see. Yes.
They did
sip my cognac, yes.
Yeah, seriously. Like, they're both a little like, I mean, all right, they're both filmmakers. Even my kid's a filmmaker. So I get it. The trauma landscape that I even tried, like I said, with like whatever happened to Baby Jim, like, let me go a little, old fashioned for them. And it was like, all right, we don't, I mean, I think they got that, oh, this is interesting and cool. And you can't deny the acting is incredible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's such a different time that like, you're like, why doesn't she just yell out the window to get help? Why is she throwing these little paper airplanes?
So they just don't have the same taste for like camp, I think. Yeah. I think that's the problem there. Yeah. Hopefully they'll mature into it. I think I did. I rejected it. I think there is something to being like an early like film buff or something and just wanting everything to be super gritty and serious because that's real film, and then you eventually grow up and you're like, you know what, Legally Blonde kind of fucking slaps. It's great. I'm gonna watch that all day.
Maybe they just don't. It's just me and maybe the way I present it, because they certainly can appreciate camp and like, went to see Terrifier 3 and were like, loving it like everybody else in a fun way. So I think it's just me. I think it's just my Friday night picks and the way I present it that they're just like, this isn't exactly what you built it up to be.
Well, I had that same thing as Steve where I went through a phase when it was after my initial infatuation with horror and low budget movies and stuff like that I developed as a kid. Then I went through the phase where I was like, oh, well, yes, I'm going to look at this very analytically, and I'm only going to look at the AFI top 100 list and see what's on there that I can enjoy. And, I'm going to deconstruct this thing. And like, yeah, I saw a lot of great movies and movies that I still like to this day. But then when push came to shove and I really started formulating my informed taste, I went right back to all of that stuff that I either rented as a kid or that I watched on USA Up All Night, or I watched on Joe Bob, or I watched, Elvira, or something like that. And like that stuff is so important to me, like shaping the kind of person that I am, because I love classics. Like I could sit down any day of the week and watch Casablanca start to finish if I had to, but it's like, really, I mean, if you could see my desk right now where I'm sitting, it's like I have stacks of books next to me that aren't on camera, like Jason Paul Collins, Assault of the Killer Bees book,
There you
and
go.
Cassandra Peterson's autobiography, and
Great
all of
read.
these books about like B movies and stuff like that. And so it's been so fun and rewarding for me doing the show, because it was like, yeah, I was watching Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-orama or Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, like on USA Up All Night, and then 30 years later interviewing Brink Stevens on this dumb little podcast, and it's so awesome.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, I shouldn't throw my husband into it, because he's kind of down for whatever. I think it's our son that's the problem. He's the young film snob.
Yeah.
Although when we bring it up to him, like, well, you got to watch, you have to watch Psycho, and he's like, boring, but then he gets into it. But like movies like April Fool's Day,
Fun.
like I
Love it.
probably watched that 100 times as a kid, like, and we rewatched that, and like my son, like, was like, it's pretty cool, but then it got him at the end with the Jack in the Box. Like, I was like watching him wait, I'm like, he's gonna jump,
Yeah.
and he did. So they still hold up. I just don't think they had, or he, I should say, my kid, who I would hope that would have had this like insatiable craving for things like Motel Hell, like I did.
Yeah.
He's much more, he has a finer taste.
Yeah.
So we're not too far apart in age, just a few years. So I'm just curious then, it's a Friday night, you're walking through your local video store, perusing the shelves. What is a VHS cover art that's catching your eye, that is sort of like lighting that fire in you, where you're like, I have to see what that is?
Yeah, were you, second part question, were you a video store kid like we were, like just going and hanging out and reading all the boxes?
100%. I think my mom, because it was my mom, had to pay like $60 because I kept Waxworks.
Good choice. Matt Galligan classic.
There was a movie, I don't know if you guys have seen it, and if you haven't, you need to see it, because very famous people were involved in this movie, but it's not great. It's called Scream for Help.
Oh yeah,
Scream
for Help. No, Steve, I thought you do. So Scream for Help.
I do.
Scream for Help is, in my opinion, if Shadow of a Doubt were made by perverts and sex offenders.
Yes. I watched this on your recommendation.
I watched that. I'm not a fan generally of Michael Winner.
Yeah.
But that movie is like, it's not great, but that like lead performance is so off the wall, and that movie has moments in it that were like so shocking to me. But I know, like, didn't like Tom Holland write that?
Tom Holland
wrote it.
And it's guys, any listener listening, you please go find this movie and watch it for its sheer batshit, like performances, weird ass lines. And it's definitely like, it's not a cool movie, right? It's like incestual and strange and not okay of a film, like if you're looking for like a PC movie.
Right.
But it's bananas. And so that is one, though, that I took my husband to see because they were playing it at the New Beverly. And I was like, holy shit, they're playing this at the New Bev. We have to go. And I think he appreciated it, seeing it with an audience. So it's maybe one of those that you may not enjoy quite as much watching alone as if you would getting, like Jared and his wife, some random neighbors together, have a couple of drinks, and then watch it. You'll
prepare yourself for it. What would I just this is a random tangent, but what would make a good double feature with Scream for Help? Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker.
Agreed.
That would be a fun couple of hours at the movies.
For the first time, like my husband and I, like 6 months ago.
Same, for Halloween, I watched it for the first time, and I'm like,
what the fuck is this?
This is like queer canon, like masterpiece. Like, what? Why do people not talk about that?
Why do people not talk about it? Well, I think they do. I just had never heard of it because I host a podcast, and our producer Michael, I was like, called him right after. I'm like, have you guys? Because he also has a podcast called Midnight Mass, and I was like, have you guys ever talked about Butcher?
Oh, you're talking about Michael Verratti.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was on our show a few times.
Oh,
you
nice.
see what I'm talking about? Yeah, the connections.
Well, he was like, oh my God, yeah, we talk about that movie all the time. And I was like, how have I never heard of this?
Weird thing about that movie was that it was, I feel like it wasn't available for a long time as Butcher
Yeah.
Baker Nightmare Maker. It was called Night
Expanse.
Warnings.
Night
And it
Warnings.
had
Yeah.
like a really generic cover. And then it's like you look and it's like that poster art with that title and then that Susan Tyrrell performance is
It's out of control. And so if anyone does a remake, I would love to play that mom.
Oh my God. Oh, you would kill that. Oh my God. That would be so fun.
I'm going to ask this now because I don't normally have the chance to talk about it on the show while we're talking just about these kind of exploitation movies that go well together. Another one that I think would be a really fun double feature with Scream for Help, not because it shares anything like contextually with the movie. There's just a fun, sleazy nature to it. Steve, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it yet. Tiffany, are you familiar with Out of the Dark?
The dark.
I haven't watched this yet either. I have to do it.
So this movie is insane, and I only found it a couple of years ago, and I've been obsessed with it ever since then. It came out in 1988 or early 89, depending. It's like accounts vary. Really, really limited theatrical release. It's about Karen Black plays the boss of a phone sex operation, and some guy is calling the line and starts kind of calling and harassing the women, and then starts kind of picking them off one by one when they get out of work, but he's dressed as a clown. And it's Karen Black, Bud Cort, Jeffrey Lewis, Divine, Tracy Walter, Tab Hunter.
Wow. Paul Bartel,
Paul
Lainey
Bartel.
Kazan.
Yeah, it's incredibly well made. That's the thing about it, is it's like it rides the line of like sleazy and exploitation. It's kind of like if you threw like an erotic thriller, a slasher, like a psychological thriller, and like a Skinamax movie into a blender.
I love it.
And it has like the best B movie cast of all time. Like it's so good. And I was mentioning, the reason it came to mind is because I was actually telling someone about, they were saying I for some reason lumped that movie and Scream for Help together as like movies that they should check out to see if they're streaming.
I am going to watch that, and then we're going to have to do another episode where we talk about both of them back to back, because I need to see it now.
It's on Shudder now.
Have you seen
it's on Shudder and it's on Tubi.
For horror movie box art that I would have what I would have gravitated to, but that I did not see in the 80s, but I did see recently, Death Spa.
I had a bad movie night. I call them bad movie nights just to prepare people for what they're watching. But that's a favorite of mine. It is so fun. It is a Killer Jim movie, one of multiple, but the best of the Killer Jim movies.
No real nudity or sex, which you're like, imagine what like a Killer Jim movie would be like, you know, these like,
it should be all hormones, right? Like everyone's fucking constantly, all these hot bodies everywhere. It's fairly tame, except the gore is pretty gnarly.
The gore is really gnarly, and it has Ken Foray in it. And so when we watched it, it was like really late. Sean and I were watching it, and I was like instantly texting Ken. I'm like, Death Spa, hell yeah! And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? He did not remember it at all, which doesn't surprise me. Like, you know, when you make hundreds of movies, especially ones that you're like small parts of, but I'm like, Ken, you're not just a tiny part in this.
Yeah, he's great in that. He's wearing little shorts the whole movie. I mean, that's an incredible encapsulation of like early 90s like gym fashion, you know, like it's so heightened because the 80s are like still kind of bleeding over, and it's so heightened and so funny.
That poster art is great, and I always used to confuse it with Killer Workout, aka Aerobicide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many like
words.
evil
These are
gym movies.
words we're saying.
All right, I'm worried we're just gonna make mixtapes all night long here because I could absolutely do this. Well, I want to ask you, Tiffany, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about, that you're excited about, or anything you think is underseen and you want people to go check it out?
Underseen. Well, we do. I told you about The Hazing. It's going to have like a new Blu-ray release. Same with, and actually this one comes out really soon. There's a movie I did called Basement Jack, with Lynn Lowry is in it, and lots of other familiar faces that if you watch this film, it's just totally like a 2000 slasher.
Nice.
But done really, really well. And they just did a 4K of that, and we did a new commentary, which is a lot of fun. And so that's coming out. And Lynn Lowry is phenomenal in it. Like, she plays crazy so fucking well. That she's another one that I would put there with Brink and Debbie, as far as like, they love the genre and they're really good and they're really sweet. So that's coming out. I still have my podcast with Kane Hodder and Felissa Rose called Casualty Friday.
Love it.
We have slowed down our output on that, so it'll be more of like a monthly special rather than a weekly show. And I have a new show that I am starting, and it's called Fright for What's Right. And so it's taking horror movie people that have a philanthropic side and kind of talking to them about what it is they fight for, right? So, you know, you got these really scary people that have this really incredibly not scary heart, and what their cause is, and like how we as fans of the genre can help them.
I that's another thing I love about the horror community, is that it is just a bunch of like big scary looking softies, which is like the best. But I did want to give you, I did want to talk for a second. We didn't really touch on it, but you are involved in a lot of philanthropic efforts for something that I'm also very passionate about. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the causes you're fighting for?
Yeah, so this is not the fun side of the genre, but a very important one. Thanks, Steve and guys, for caring about it. But gun violence prevention, by no means taking anybody's guns away, but just hoping that people that want to have a gun for home protection or whatever, that you get it legally and you store it safely. So away from kids and loved ones that perhaps should not have one, or children, or people that are having a mental health crisis, that they don't get them and harm themselves or others. We became very heavily involved in this cause after our daughter was shot and wounded at a school shooting in Southern California back in 2019 by a boy who came to school with an unsecured ghost gun. And it's one of those things I tell people daily. It's like, 100% we were the lucky ones. Many people are not. Many people have to go home to an empty table, or a missing wife, or a missing child, or a missing friend. And it's often could easily be solved by locking it up, right? Lock up your firearms, keep them away from people. So that's what we do. We work with places like Brady, work with Moms Demand Action, lots of other gun violence prevention orgs, just to kind of get the word out there, pass other common sense legislation, like red flag laws. Like, if I notice that Steve has a gun at home and I know that he's in crisis, that I can maybe call somebody to help get those taken away from him in that time until he gets the help that he needs and he's maybe better and could make better choices. So that's what we do. Most of the horror fans that I've met have been super, super, super supportive of this cause and of our family and the fight that we're in. And which is kind of why I decided to start the podcast, because I was like, oh my God, I go to these conventions and people, they love talking about Death Factory, but they mostly will start with that and go, but what I really love is the work that you and your husband, your daughter are doing. And so we end up in this big giant love fest about the same thing we always talk about, is like, I think the genre fans are people that want to make the world better, really, which makes no sense, because like we're making the awful worlds. But I think it's because it's like, wow, we know that does exist somewhere, and this is the world that we want.
Yeah, everyone who's like a genre horror movie maker, for the most part, like you said, like the majority of the people are big softies. They're all amazing, and we've all exercised our demons in like healthy ways. It's like we all dealt with something, and now we're either like we're part of a scene that's tangentially related to it, or we're making art. And it's we've seen some crazy stuff in our lives, and we turn it into something that is nourishing and something that is positive and helpful. And I think that's just so common among this kind of community, because I feel like when I go to events here in the city, whether it's a convention or whether it's like every month, I go to a couple of different like movie events or playing trivia and stuff like that, and getting to know, I don't really know that many West Coast people, but like the New York equivalent of that, of the horror filmmakers here, I've become friendly with, and everyone's just like so awesome to one another and so supportive of one another. And it's just like they can make the most like disgustingly graphic and gory movie, but then it's like everyone's just wants to see everyone succeed and just has nothing but love for everyone. And I mean, I don't know if that is specific to the horror community. I aside from like channeling and dealing with trauma in that way, maybe it's that the output becomes something amazing, but like I feel like that's probably true of other groups of people, but I feel it more for some reason in the horror community.
I feel it very much with the horror community, with the horror community, the sci-fi Star Trek community. And I think it probably stems, maybe not as much now with the newer kids that are growing up into this, but like I know when all of us were growing up, you were a little weird if you liked to wear black. You were a little weird if you had tattoos and piercings, right? Like you were sort of othered in a way. And I feel like if you've ever felt that, if you've ever felt kind of put out, you instantly want to bring people in, right?
Yeah.
Like make people
That's
feel
a really good point. Yeah.
On the outside. And at least I knew growing up, like when I started going to horror cons, like I never wanted to make somebody feel like shit. I never wanted to make somebody feel weird for something that they liked, And I also, now I look at horror movies as, well, shit, nothing you make can be as bad as what's really fucking out there or what's really happening right now. Right. So like, this is like, a popcorn life to watch somebody, sew lips to assholes and and don't use that as my reel for this episode. But
too late, it's already live.
It's like that kind of stuff is just so horrifically silly compared to real life trauma.
Yeah. I
think that bonds everybody in a way.
I assume that like hardcore rom-com fans just have underground fight clubs in their off hours. Like I assume those are the scary ones doing the violent shit. If your fantasy life is all like really happy, upbeat things, then you're probably getting into some dark stuff.
You're in some dark magic, man.
Yeah. Watch out for her. She's binging Hallmark movies again.
Well, I don't know. I really am never really scared when I walk in on a bunch of black shirted, tattooed up people, but I would be definitely scared walking into a church.
That is 100% accurate.
And not just because I'm concerned I'd light on fire.
That's really the reason.
That's the
reason we all don't want to go.
Yeah. Well, there's also like I guess if you go by like the Star Trek Prime Directive and you go by what the messaging of Star Trek always was like. So I was a kid who, when the Yankees would play and have rainouts, Pix 11 would show Star Trek The Next Generation episodes. And so I started watching those. I never really went back and did like the original series so much, but I've seen all the movies. But like I really enjoyed Next Generation. And then as it's evolved and these Paramount Plus Star Trek shows have started coming out, they're of such like remarkable quality that it's like the Star Trek content that's out there now. Well, I know you were on Picard. It was so fun to see you pop up on Picard, or Strange New Worlds, or Lower Decks, Discovery, all like really excellent shows. And so I'm just curious, like, were you a fan of like Star Trek or sci-fi at large too? Like, how did you find yourself on Picard?
So I did not, because like you guys have heard this whole episode, I grew up just a horror nerd. Like the cornier the better, the gorier the better, the more fun the better. So I actually felt like, I think Star Trek as I was growing up was probably way too highbrow for me. Like probably like I'm not smart enough to understand space and time travel. You know what I mean? Like but I remember seeing them as I grew up at conventions, like, holy crap, like they're just like us. Like I had that feeling like they're their own group, but they're just like us. And we're sort of like side by side in this world of nerdom, right? Like there's like, the Trekkies, there's the horror people, and then there's the comic book people. And I somehow was in both the comic world and the horror world. And I was like, oh, how neat. I wonder if I could. And I remember making movies where, be like, oh, that guy was on Star Trek. Like, oh, that's so cool. So I'm sort of like, side by side with that. And my husband started working on Star Trek. And he and the showrunner were like, hey, like there's this really cool changeling, and she gets to fight, and she has this kind of cool arc, and I'm reading the script, I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool, and I was like, but who's playing Dr. Oak? And they're like, well, it's a reoccurring, blah blah blah, and so you'd have to audition for it. I'm like, I'll audition for it, and they're like, but there's not a lot of lines. I was like, that's okay, I'd be a Star Trek doctor, I'd be the CMO on the ship. Like, are you out of your mind? And so I auditioned and ended up getting the part of Dr. Oak. And they were like, well, don't, people are going to hate you. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because you're really, you're mean to Dr. Crusher. She's like, beloved doctor in Star Trek world. And I was like, well, I need to be meaner to her. Like,
yeah, fucking Gates McFadden had it coming.
Make this thing. Well, she did, because you know what? Our ship was just chilling along. No problems in the world until she decided to bring her bullshit and mess up things were going along swimmingly. But they kind of warned me about that. Like, fans are really gonna be mad at you, and they were. they weren't kidding. People online were like, "I can Dr. Oak." But it was really great, and I got to be a Trill, which was so cool. But so to kind of back on this, when I talked about. When I was originally broached about being on Star Trek, I of course went back and like deep dive into everything I could.
Yeah.
Star Trek, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go into this world, and if I don't have the answer, I'm going to be just this sham, and it's going to be like so embarrassing. And I learned so much about Star Trek, and then nobody asked.
Oh no.
And nobody cared.
Yeah, I don't know why. I would assume there would be like a quiz or something, but like, yeah.
That's what it was going to be. Like, they're going to be sitting around at lunch, and all the actors are going to know all these things, and I'm going to know nothing. But then my one moment came to shine, and they were like, oh, well, Dr. Oak gets hurt in this fight before she goes to the bridge, and, she's bleeding, but what color blood do Trills bleed? And I was like, holy shit. That wasn't part of anything I read. You have no idea. And I was literally texting like Star Trek fan expert friends of mine. I'm like, what do Trills bleed? What do Trills? Are Trills mammals? Like, nobody knew the answer. So Reddit was.
What was the answer? How did you? Was that information out there, or was this something you got to add?
I think we made it.
You got to establish it. There you go.
Canon. We could not find any Trill blood anywhere.
Well, that's because you're not like me, and your birthday is not First Contact Day.
Oh, is it?
Mine
there you
is.
go.
Yes.
Oh, how exciting!
Nerd.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, super nerd. You're king nerd now.
Exactly.
But man, it's been really neat to see, to go to cons and kind of watch the crossover of both. Like I have horror fans who are like, I never watched Star Trek, but I started to watch for you, and now I'm really into it, and vice versa. Like Star Trek people that will come to a convention, a horror show, just to meet me because like they want to complete their signature package. Like, oh my God, this is so neat. I never knew this existed. And wow, these movies seem so cool. And like now they're into our stuff. So it's I made that happen, guys.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Singularly responsible.
Cocky hair flip was going on for people who can't see it. It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Well earned.
And I mean,
well
it's canon. It's canon now. I mean, it's been said on this show, so no one can dispute it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done it single-handedly. Bridge the gap between Trekkies and horror nerds.
Ah, finally, the peace talks can begin.
They can, yes.
No longer will Jared threaten to give me wedgies every episode.
The strike is over.
Yeah, now we are two great tastes that taste great together now. Before that, not so much. I had one question, Tiffany, that I wanted to ask you, because I don't get the opportunity to ask this kind of question very often. So you talked a bit about, doing your conventions, and mostly horror conventions, but you obviously get people who recognize you from Star Trek and come up. What, in your opinion, you have the opportunity to set up your table at the convention. You can be surrounded on both sides by two other people, and yet spend the whole day with them. Who are you choosing to be your ideal convention table mates, or I guess corner mates? I don't really know what the terminology for that would be.
100% Ken Foray.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
He's my tried and true, one of my closest, oldest friends. As a matter of fact, at the last convention I was at the other end, and he moved all the crap off half his table, so I would just sit next to him and Christina Elise. So we had an absolutely great time. It's really hard. I'm gonna have to pick like 4 because just 2 is tough.
Yeah.
At that show, it was me and Ken, and we always have a great time. I love Bill Moseley very, very much. He is another one of my closest, oldest. Brink Stevens, a fucking great time. She's always great. She's so smart, really funny. Yes, I could do that. I mean, I guess I'd have to put Felissa in there. You know,
I've never met Felissa Rose, but she seems like she's always has a ton of energy, and she seems really genuine.
And we can consistently bombard people with Casualty Friday nonsense.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go with those guys, but definitely Ken and Bill. We go way back, talk a lot of shit.
It's
awesome.
I'm still the kind of like, you know, I nerd out over actors so hard, and every time I hear that an actor I admire is nice, I'm just like, oh yeah, Ken Foray's nice. Oh, awesome. Good to hear it.
So
yeah.
nice.
Love that guy. He's awesome.
He's so nice. He's He's the best.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
And Mosley's great. If you've never met Bill.
No, I haven't. And I really admire his work as well. I haven't seen as much of his stuff as I have of Ken Foray's, but he's been at it for longer and been, you know, doing amazing stuff forever.
Incredibly smart. Like Mensa, like he's like went to Yale, like super smart. So like some of the stuff that comes about, you're like, what are you even talking about?
Why are you talking like that? You're Chop Top. Come on.
Yeah, you shouldn't talk like that.
You're supposed to be saying "lick my plate, you dog dick," and nothing else.
Should be all you do.
No, I'm a big Bill Moseley fan. That's nice to hear that you chose him. I never met him personally, but I'm a fan of a lot of his work, and I feel like we've interacted on the internet maybe a few times. But he's great. We covered him briefly in Crash and Burn on our show, which was a very old, like a sort of spiritual sequel to Robot Jocks.
Ooh,
yeah,
which just got like I think Danny Draven just did or had something to do with the Blu-ray release that just came out of that. They cleaned up that and Bad Channels.
Yeah.
And just put them both out on Blu-ray. But so I look forward to watching it in a better presentation, because the way we saw it, it was like I know Bill Moseley's in this. I know Bill Moseley's in this movie. Maybe that's him. It's real dark.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I would like to.
Hard to see. Well, if you're a fan of Moseley and you're a fan of weird movies and you like me even remotely, you should watch Homesick.
Oh, so, okay.
Me, Bill Moseley, the late great Tom Tolles.
Oh yeah, he was awesome.
Directed by Adam Wingard.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit, yeah, I love him.
Famous Adam Wingard. It was his first feature, along with Evan Katz, who wrote it with him, who did like Cheap Thrills and other awesome movies. And so it was their first movie. We shot it in Alabama. They were like 20 years old. Such a low budge movie. Like I remember buying pizza for the whole crew and cast because like we had like $3. But it's very weird and very cool.
I'm gonna check this one out. This was not on my radar, so I'm gonna seek this out.
Yes.
Well, we should let you go. You've been so generous with your time and with dorking out with us over all these horror movies. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you can come back again and talk about a movie with us.
Anytime. Let's pick one and we can dissect it together.
Let's do it. Yeah.
See, we have to pick something that's sort of like a weird home invasion / sleazy incestuous movie, because then we can just segue naturally into that or Scream for Help.
Scream for Help.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, do both.
Actually just watch Scream for Help and then come on and just talk about that, because that's enough for a whole episode.
There we go. Yeah.
I agree.
Trivia, Scream for Help was made in the hometown of my birth.
Oh,
New Rochelle, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Not too bad.
The place where those hidden tapes are buried, and I think his name was Chris DeRosa's backyard. Chris, if you're listening, dig it up.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny as we've been doing the show, it's like we started it, we did however many episodes. We've always been really good about recording a ways in advance and treating it really professionally. And we're like, oh, well, can we fit this in under the umbrella of what this show is about? And as the show goes on, like, I feel like we look for any excuse to like slightly break format and
widen the umbrella.
Widen the umbrella of stuff that we
Listen.
can bring on.
Listen, we talked about Delta Die.
We did.
We talked about it. The meat pies. It's pretty cool. Julie Strain, Brink Stevens. I'm in it. Julie Strain's little sister, Lizzie Strain, started out as well.
That movie's dope. I really like it. It's fun.
It's a cool movie. And another bridge to Charlie Band. I was in Alex Band's music video for Stigmatized.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he was in that band. He's in that band, The Calling, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So, this was definitely a Charlie Band podcast.
It sure was.
I ran it by the upper management, and they said we passed, so we're good. We're in under the line. Yeah. So.
Checked. And then we could just tell them, and I am available to be in the next Castle Freak. So there we go.
There you go. Castle Freak 2, Freak Harder. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's coming soon.
Coming soon. Sorry, Tiffany Shepis. Thanks, you guys, for having me.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. This was a blast, and thank you. And we'll hope to have you back.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
And if you check out Tiffany's IMDb and you heard the name of some cool movies with amazing titles that you had never seen, seek some of them out, because I'm sure you'll find something that you love. If you love what we do, then jump on to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a little 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. You can follow the show if you want to keep up with us on Instagram at @puppetmasters_Castle Freaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We update about the show on Threads and Blue Sky, and our audio versions are on YouTube, which, it's a lot of work promoting the show, but it's not the only show that Steve likes to promote. Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, since you brought it up, I'm also the host of a show called Cinema Arcade, which is cinema and arcade mashed together, because that is what we are doing. We are watching movies and then playing video games based on that movie. Tiffany, you are pointing at yourself.
I have pinball machines. Can I
You
be
have
on
pinball
the show? Yeah, we have a creature from the Black Lagoon. We have a Monster Bash.
Ooh.
We have a Dracula, and I have a giant claw machine.
Ooh, I think there's an Austin
pinball too.
I think there's an Austin Powers pinball game. Maybe we can get you on that one. No,
I don't have the Austin Powers pinball. Listen, I'm blocking you and your pinball show.
No. I am getting so many red cards today. Oh my God.
Just want to be a part of you. You guys said we're a family. What the fuck?
We are. You are on. We will talk about the Creature from the Black Lagoon pinball as starring Tiffany Shepis. That's going to be a fun one. That'll be a good excuse to branch out into that too. So
see?
That's what we keep finding, are all these good excuses to just branch out. Because it's like having a format and sticking to it is something that we appreciate and our fans appreciate. But it's like, you know what? Like, I wanted an excuse to talk about Out of the Dark. I wanted an excuse to talk about Star Trek. So it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, fuck it. It's our show.
Wait until we have a Looney Tunes episode.
Nintendo on your show, Steve, and it always glitches and doesn't work, but I have it.
Hell yes. I have mine too. Yeah, tucked over here. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to bug you about this now. Well, definitely.
I know this is about Castle Freak show, but we've branched off already. Sorry.
Look, hey, no. Look, hey, if we're gonna get me started on video games now and old Nintendo games, then it's gonna be another several hours. So I'll spare you all of that. But you can hear all of that at Cinema Arcade Podcast, wherever you find podcasts. This is a little bonus episode. So our upcoming episode is still gonna be on Savage Streets and Savage Island. Am I right?
That is correct.
Those are the two Savage places we are going to be visiting in this upcoming episode.
Yeah, we'll see you guys on Friday. For a Linda Blair double feature. So thank you again to Tiffany Shepis for taking the time to join us, and we will see you all next time while we get savage with it.